The Drachnid warship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sol system, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Admiral Korax stood on the command deck, his scaled fingers drumming against the obsidian control panel as his crew conducted their standard preliminary scans of yet another developing world. Another primitive system, he muttered, golden eyes narrowing at the holographic display of Earth's orbital infrastructure. Prepare the standard first contact protocols. But Lieutenant Vress, his senior analyst, was frowning at her readings. Sir, there's something unusual about their energy signatures. There always is, Lieutenant, Korax replied dismissively. The Drachnid Empire had cataloged thousands of emerging civilizations, and they all followed predictable patterns of development. Let me guess, they've discovered nuclear fission. Perhaps they're experimenting with crude fusion reactors. No, sir. They're manipulating quantum fields. Korax's head snapped toward her station. Impossible. Check your instruments. I have, sir. 3 times. Vress's fingers danced across her console, bringing up detailed analysis streams. The signatures are unmistakable. They're conducting controlled quantum experiments. The theoretical understanding required for such tests should be centuries beyond their current technological level. The Admiral studied the data himself, his natural skepticism warring with the evidence before him. The humans, as they called themselves, were indeed performing experiments that should have been far beyond their capabilities. Their approach was unorthodox, even crude by Drachnid standards, but the underlying principles showed a grasp of quantum mechanics that was remarkable for their development stage. Send the preliminary report to High Command, he ordered after several moments of contemplation. Mark it as an anomaly, but maintain their classification as a Category D civilization. We don't want to cause unnecessary concern. The response from High Command came within hours. Acknowledged. Maintain standard observation protocols. Indigenous species shows unusual developmental patterns, but poses no strategic significance. Primitive military capabilities confirmed. That should have been the end of it, just another entry in the vast Drachnid database of developing worlds. But over the next several months, Korax found himself repeatedly drawn back to the sensor logs from Earth. The humans were moving too fast. Where other species took centuries to progress from one technological tier to the next, humans were making leaps in decades. Their quantum experiments grew more sophisticated, their understanding of spatial mechanics deepened, and most concerning of all, they were beginning to incorporate these advances into their military technology. Admiral Vress reported 6 months later, her voice tight with disbelief. They've successfully created a stable quantum bridge. It only lasted for 4.2 seconds. But impossible, Korax interrupted, using that word more frequently now when discussing Earth. The energy requirements alone. They've developed some form of exotic matter containment. We don't fully understand their methodology. It's unorthodox. The word made Korax's scales itch. The Drachnid Empire had achieved its dominance through careful, methodical advancement over millennia. Every technological breakthrough followed established theoretical frameworks. But these humans, they seemed to be taking shortcuts, finding paths that shouldn't exist. What troubled him most was their rate of progress. In the time it took most species to refine a single technological breakthrough, humans had made dozens. Their approach was chaotic, almost reckless by Drachnid standards, but undeniably effective. In the privacy of his quarters that night, Korax composed a personal message to the Imperial Science Council. I believe we may be underestimating the humans' potential. Their development pattern is unprecedented. Request detailed analysis of their quantum manipulation techniques. The Council's response was predictably dismissive. Noted. Continue standard observation. Primitive species often display temporary accelerated development in isolated fields. Pattern will normalize over time. But it didn't normalize. 2 months later, Earth's first prototype quantum drive came online. The Drachnid sensors detected it immediately. A pulse of energy that briefly warped the fabric of space-time itself. The humans had somehow managed to create a working faster-than-light drive using principles that the Empire's scientists had deemed theoretically impossible. "They're not following the established development patterns," Vress observed, her voice a mixture of fear and fascination. "They're creating their own path." Korak stood at his viewport, watching the distant blue-white sphere that was Earth. For the first time in his long career, he felt a deep unease about a developing world. The humans weren't just advancing. They were innovating in ways that challenged the Empire's fundamental understanding of physics. "Update our report to High Command," he ordered finally. Recommend upgrading their classification to Category C." "Sir?" Vress looked startled. "That would require—" "I know what it requires, Lieutenant, but we can no longer afford to ignore what's happening here. The humans aren't just developing, they're evolving. And they're doing it faster than any species we've ever encountered." As his ship prepared to return to Imperial space, Korak took one last look at Earth. Something told him that this wouldn't be the last time the Empire would hear from this supposedly primitive world. The humans had already proven themselves capable of achieving the impossible. The question now was, what other impossibilities would they make real? In the depths of Earth's quantum research facilities, unaware of the alien observers departing their system, scientists continued their work. Their latest prototype was nearly ready, a device that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The Empire's dismissal of Earth would prove to be more than just a miscalculation. It would become the catalyst for a revolution that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display in the heart of the Quantum Advancement Research Facility, watching as streams of data confirmed what she'd suspected for months. Project Prometheus wasn't just succeeding, it was exceeding every expectation. "The quantum field is stable," she announced to the assembled team of scientists and military officials. "Energy efficiency is 300% above our initial projections." General Marcus Hayes, the graying head of the Earth Defense Initiative, leaned forward in his chair. "In plain English, Doctor." "We've cracked it," Sarah replied, allowing herself a small smile. "The Nexus drive isn't just theoretical anymore. We can bend space-time in ways that shouldn't be possible according to conventional physics." The implications hung heavy in the air. Humanity had spent the last decade watching the stars, tracking the mysterious alien ships that thought themselves undetected at the edge of their solar system. They'd intercepted fragments of their transmissions, decoded enough to understand that these visitors, the Drachnids, considered Earth primitive, unworthy of serious attention. Their dismissal had been humanity's greatest advantage. "Show me," Hayes ordered. Sarah gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show their latest test results. Traditional physics says you can't create stable quantum bridges without massive energy expenditure. The Drachnids use crystalline matrices to channel vast amounts of power for their FTL drives. But we found a shortcut. The display showed a series of complex equations that had become Sarah's life's work. Instead of brute forcing our way through spacetime, we're persuading it to cooperate. Think of it like finding pressure points in the fabric of reality. "And the military applications?" Hayes asked, though his slight smile suggested he already knew the answer. "Unlimited," Sarah replied. "The same principles that make the Nexus drive possible can be applied to weapons, shields, communication systems, everything. We're not just catching up to the Drachnids, we're surpassing them in ways they won't expect." In the months that followed, Earth's technological revolution accelerated. Hidden facilities around the globe hummed with activity as the first fleet of ships equipped with Nexus drives took shape. They looked nothing like the crystalline behemoths of the Drachnid Empire. These were sleek, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The prototype battleship Prometheus rose from its underground berth in the Atacama Desert, its quantum core pulsing with contained power. Sarah watched from the control center as Captain Maya Rodriguez put the vessel through its first real space trials. "Quantum field is stable," Maya's voice crackled over the comm. "Beginning spatial displacement test in 3, 2, 1. The Prometheus didn't just disappear. It slipped through reality like a stone through water, leaving barely a ripple in space-time. When it reappeared 30 astronomical units away, past Neptune's orbit, the celebrations in the control center were subdued. They all understood the gravity of what they'd achieved. Recovery complete, Maya reported. All systems nominal. The Nexus drive performed better than expected. Sarah turned to Hayes, who was watching the sensor readings with intense concentration. They won't be able to track our quantum signature, she assured him. We're not breaking the laws of physics like they do. We're working with them in ways the Drachnids haven't imagined. How long until the fleet is ready? Hayes asked. The first wave, 6 ships including Prometheus, will be operational within 2 months. The automated construction facilities are working at full capacity. Hayes nodded slowly. They're getting suspicious. Our long-range sensors have detected increased Drachnid activity at the edge of the system. They know something's changed, even if they don't understand what. Let them wonder, Sarah said, her voice hard with determination. By the time they figure it out, it'll be too late. In high orbit, Earth's first space fortress took shape, its quantum-enhanced stealth systems making it virtually invisible to conventional sensors. Inside, rows of newly minted officers trained on systems that represented humanity's greatest technological leap since the discovery of fire. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, automated probes equipped with miniaturized versions of the Nexus drive mapped Drachnid patrol routes and fleet movements. Every scrap of data was analyzed, every pattern studied. Humanity would have only one chance to prove itself to the galaxy. The Drachnid Empire had ruled space for millennia through technological superiority and methodical expansion. They had never encountered a species that could match their capabilities, let alone surpass them. Their complacency would be their undoing. In her private lab, Sarah put the finishing touches on her latest project, a quantum communication system that could transmit messages instantly across any distance, completely undetectable by conventional means. As she worked, she thought about the message they'd intercepted just days ago. The Drachnids had finally decided to upgrade Earth's classification from Category D to Category C. Too little, too late, she murmured to herself, watching as the quantum-encrypted message she'd just sent reached the Prometheus in less than a picosecond. We're not the primitive species you dismissed anymore. The silent revolution was nearly complete. Soon, very soon, the Drachnid Empire would learn that they had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity's potential. The galaxy was about to change, and Earth would be the catalyst. High Admiral Nexer of the Drachnid Empire stood rigid before the Imperial Council, his scales dulled with concern as he delivered his report. The humans have gone dark. All quantum signatures we previously detected from their system have ceased. The council chamber, hewn from living crystal deep within the Empire's throne world, amplified the uneasy murmurs that followed his statement. High Counselor Vex, her ancient scales shimmering with bioluminescent patterns of authority, leaned forward on her crystalline throne. "Explain," she commanded. 3 standard cycles ago, their quantum experiments simply stopped. Our long-range sensors detect only conventional power signatures now. It's as if they've abandoned their research entirely. Or masked it, interrupted Counselor Drath, his battle-scarred scales betraying his military background. No species simply abandons technological progress, especially not one that showed such unprecedented development. The word unprecedented hung in the air like a challenge. The Empire had encountered thousands of developing civilizations over its long history, but none had progressed as rapidly as the humans. None had shown such disregard for the established paths of technological advancement. "We should have contained them sooner," Drath continued. "Their approach to quantum mechanics alone represents a potential threat to Imperial stability. You suggest military action against a Category C civilization." Vex's bioluminescence flickered with disapproval. "Based on what evidence?" Before Drath could respond, the chamber's emergency sensors flared to life. A junior officer burst through the ornate doors, his scales pale with urgency. High Council, we've detected a massive quantum disturbance in the outer rim. The mining colony on Nexus VI. It's gone. Gone. Vex rose from her throne. Explain immediately. The entire facility, 3,000 citizens, the orbital platforms, everything, has vanished. But the quantum signature, it's unlike anything we've ever encountered. It didn't breach space-time like our drives. It slipped through it. Understanding dawned in Nexer's eyes. Like the human experiments we detected. Impossible, Drath snarled. They couldn't have advanced so far so quickly. They couldn't have reached Nexus VI without us detecting them. But they had. And it was only the beginning. Over the next solar cycle, reports flooded in from across the Empire. Critical shipyards found their quantum crystal cores transformed into inert matter. Communication relays fell silent. Strategic military installations reported phantom sensor contacts that appeared and disappeared without a trace. No lives were lost. Every facility was evacuated before it was disabled. But the message was clear. Humanity had not only mastered quantum mechanics, they had revolutionized it. In orbit around Earth, Captain Maya Rodriguez watched the tactical display aboard the Prometheus as reports of their operations reached the fleet. The first phase of Operation Watershed was proceeding exactly as planned. All strike teams report mission success, her tactical officer announced. No casualties on either side. The Drachnid Empire's military capability has been reduced by approximately 40%. Maya nodded, allowing herself a small smile. The Empire had dismissed humanity as primitive, incapable of matching their technological prowess. They never considered that humans might find entirely new ways to manipulate quantum physics. Message from Earth Defense Command, her communications officer reported. The Drachnid battle fleet has mobilized. 87 capital ships have entered FTL, headed for Sol system. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Right on schedule, Maya murmured. She opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, battle stations, remember your training. Today we show the galaxy that humanity will not be ignored. The Prometheus and its sister ships slipped into their defensive positions, their Nexus drives humming with contained power. Unlike the massive crystalline ships of the Drachnid fleet, Earth's vessels were compact, agile, and virtually invisible to conventional sensors. In her lab on Earth, Sarah Chen monitored the quantum communication network she created. Every ship in Earth's fleet was connected instantaneously, able to coordinate with perfect precision across vast distances. The Drachnids, relying on their conventional FTL communications, would be fighting blind. The quantum defense grid is online, she reported to General Hayes. All population centers are shielded. Even if they break through our fleet, they can't harm Earth. Hayes watched the tactical display, where red dots representing the approaching Drachnid fleet crawled closer to their system. They still outnumber us 10-1. Numbers don't matter, Sarah replied confidently. Not anymore. Our technology isn't just different from theirs. It's fundamentally more advanced. They're trying to force their way through space-time. We've learned to work with it. The first Drachnid ships began emerging from FTL at the edge of the solar system, their crystalline hulls glowing with power as they prepared for battle. High Admiral Nexer stood on his flagship's command deck, watching as his sensors tried to locate the human fleet. Multiple quantum distortions detected, his sensor officer reported. But they're wrong. The patterns make no sense. Nexer felt a chill run down his spine as he realized the truth. The humans hadn't abandoned their quantum research. They'd perfected it. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and neither side truly understood how it would change the galaxy forever. The void between Mars and Jupiter erupted with light as the Drachnid fleet emerged from FTL, 87 capital ships arranged in the Empire's classical diamond formation. Their crystalline hulls pulsed with energy, weapon systems charging as they prepared to subjugate yet another primitive civilization. High Admiral Nexar's voice echoed through the fleet's command channel. Attention human vessels. Your acts of aggression against the Empire cannot be tolerated. Surrender immediately and submit to Imperial authority, or face immediate." His transmission cut off abruptly as quantum distortions rippled through space. Where there had been empty void, 6 human ships materialized simultaneously, their dark hulls seeming to bend light around them. "This is Captain Maya Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Fleet." A calm voice responded on all frequencies. "We gave you the chance to recognize us as equals. You chose to dismiss us instead. That was a mistake." The Prometheus moved first, not with the ponderous grace of Drachnid ships, but with an agility that seemed to defy physics. One moment it was at the front of Earth's formation. The next, it simply ceased to exist, only to reappear inside the Drachnid fleet's defensive screen. "Impossible," Nexer breathed, watching as his carefully arranged formation began to break apart. "All ships, maintain formation. Target that vessel." But targeting the human ships proved nearly impossible. They didn't move through space in any conventional sense. Instead, they seemed to slip between moments, appearing and disappearing faster than the Drachnid targeting systems could track. In her command chair aboard Prometheus, Maya watched the battlefield through quantum-enhanced sensors that showed not just where things were, but where they could be. "Execute pattern Sigma," she ordered. "Remember, disable only. No loss of life." Earth's fleet moved as one, their nexus drives allowing them to coordinate with perfect precision. Space itself seemed to ripple and fold as they executed maneuvers that the Drachnids had deemed theoretically impossible. Inside her lab on Earth, Sarah Chen monitored the quantum readings with growing satisfaction. "The dimensional inversions are working perfectly," she reported to General Hayes. "Their weapons can't touch our ships." The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 20 minutes. Drachnid weapons, designed to breach conventional shields and armor, proved useless against ships that could manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. Energy beams passed through empty space where human vessels had been microseconds before. Quantum torpedoes detonated harmlessly against defensive fields that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. One by one, the mighty warships of the Drachnid Empire fell silent, their crystalline power cores transformed into inert matter by precisely calculated quantum pulses. No ships were destroyed. No lives were lost. Earth's fleet simply rendered the most powerful navy in known space completely harmless. On his flagship's darkened bridge, High Admiral Nexar watched in stunned silence as emergency power systems struggled to maintain life support. His mighty fleet, pride of the Empire, had been defeated not through superior firepower or numbers, but through technology that challenged his understanding of reality itself. "Sir," his communications officer reported, voice shaking, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." Maya's voice filled the powerless bridge. "Your fleet has been disabled. Your weapons and drives are offline. But your life support and basic systems remain functional. We could have destroyed you, Admiral. Remember that." A new voice joined the channel, General Hayes, speaking from Earth. "For millennia, your empire has judged other species by your own standards of development. You dismissed us because we didn't follow your established patterns of technological advancement. That ends today." Through his viewport, Nexar watched as the human ships took up positions around his defeated fleet. Their dark hulls seemed to mock the crystalline aesthetics of Imperial technology, a physical representation of how fundamentally different their approaches had been. "We are sending coordinates for a diplomatic rendezvous," Hayes continued. "The Empire will send representatives to begin discussions about humanity's place in the galaxy. This is not a request." As if to emphasize the point, the Prometheus executed one final maneuver, a simultaneous appearance at multiple points in space, something that Nexar scientists would later spend years trying to explain. "How?" he found himself asking. "How did you advance so far, so fast?" "You assumed there was only one path to the stars," Maya replied. "One way to understand the universe. That was your mistake. Humanity doesn't follow paths, Admiral. We forged them. In the aftermath of the battle, as Earth's fleet escorted the powerless Drachnid ships to a secure holding position, Sarah Chen stood in her lab, watching the quantum readings settle back to normal. On her display, she could see the preliminary data from the battle already being analyzed, each impossible maneuver adding to humanity's understanding of spacetime itself. "We didn't just win a battle today," she murmured to herself. "We changed the rules of what's possible." The age of imperial dominance was over. A new era was beginning, one where humanity's unique approach to science and technology would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. The Empire had dismissed them as primitives, never realizing that in doing so, they had given humanity the freedom to evolve beyond the Empire's own limitations. The Imperial Palace on Drachnos Prime had stood unchanged for 10,000 years, its crystalline spires a testament to the Empire's unchanging power. Now, for the first time in its history, it hosted representatives of a species that had forced the Empire to question everything it believed about technological progress. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the Imperial High Council, her simple black uniform a stark contrast to the ornate crystalline chamber. Behind her, through the transparent walls, Earth's diplomatic vessel Prometheus hung in high orbit, its dark hull a reminder of how humanity had upended the galaxy's balance of power. "The terms are not negotiable," she stated, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "The Empire will acknowledge humanity as a sovereign power. All species currently classified as primitive will be reassessed. The age of imperial categorization is over." High Counselor Vex's bioluminescent patterns flickered with barely contained anger. "You demand much for a species that has only recently achieved spaceflight. We achieved more in decades than your empire did in millennia," Sarah replied calmly. "Not because we're superior, but because we dared to think differently. How many other species might have done the same if you hadn't dismissed them as primitive?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Around the chamber, other council members shifted uncomfortably, their scales changing colors as they processed the implications. On the Prometheus, Captain Maya Rodriguez watched the proceedings through their quantum feed, accompanied by General Hayes and representatives from Earth's various nations. The ship's Nexus drive hummed quietly, ready to execute maneuvers that still defied Imperial understanding. "They're afraid," Hayes observed, watching the council members' reactions, "not just of our technology, but of what it represents." Maya nodded. "We proved that their entire approach to technological development was flawed. That's not an easy thing for an empire to accept." Back in the council chamber, Councillor Drath spoke up, his battle-scarred scales dark with concern. "And if we refuse these terms?" Sarah's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. "We've already demonstrated our capabilities, Counselor. Your fleet is still undergoing repairs from our last demonstration. Would you like another?" The threat wasn't idle. In the months since the battle in Sol system, humanity had continued to advance. The Nexus drive had been refined further, and new applications of quantum mechanics were being discovered weekly. Earth's scientists, freed from the need for secrecy, were pushing the boundaries of what even they had thought possible. "The galaxy is changing," Sarah continued, her tone softening slightly. "You can change with it, or you can become obsolete. The choice is yours, but humanity will no longer accept being dismissed or underestimated." High Counselor Vex rose from her crystalline throne, her ancient scales shifting through patterns that hadn't been seen in generations, the colors of compromise. "We acknowledge that mistakes were made in our assessment of Earth." "Not just Earth," Sarah pressed. "Your entire system of categorizing and dismissing developing civilizations needs to end. Every species deserves the chance to find their own path to the stars." The council chamber erupted in discussion, countless voices arguing in the musical language of the Drachnids. But Sarah could see in their changing scale patterns that the decision had already been made. The Empire would adapt, or it would fall. Hours later, as the Prometheus broke orbit from Drachnos Prime, Sarah stood on the observation deck with Maya and Hayes, watching the crystalline world recede. It's still hard to believe, Maya mused. A year ago, they thought we were primitives barely worth monitoring. Now they're rewriting their entire approach to interstellar relations. Because we prove that there's more than one path to the stars, Sarah replied. Their biggest mistake wasn't underestimating us. It was assuming their way was the only way. Hayes gestured to a data pad showing reports from across Earth. The public release of our quantum technology is already sparking new innovations. Medical applications, environmental restoration, energy production. We're advancing faster than ever. And we're not keeping it to ourselves, Sarah added with a smile. The Empire hoarded knowledge. We're sharing it. Every species they dismissed as primitive will now have the chance to develop in their own way, at their own pace. The Prometheus's Nexus drive activated, and space itself seemed to part before them. Unlike the harsh blue flash of Imperial drives, the human ship slipped between the folds of reality with elegant precision, leaving barely a ripple in the quantum field. Their way was to force the universe to bend to their will, Sarah said, watching the stars blur around them. Our way is to understand it, to work with it rather than against it. And that has made all the difference. As Earth's first diplomatic vessel headed home, its crew knew they had done more than just force an empire to acknowledge them. They had sparked a revolution in how species across the galaxy would approach science, technology, and their place in the cosmos. The age of imperial categorization was over. A new era was beginning, one where every civilization would be free to forge its own path to the stars, guided not by the assumptions of an ancient empire, but by their own unique understanding of the universe's infinite possibilities. Humanity had been ignored, dismissed, and underestimated. In response, they hadn't just caught up to the galaxy's oldest empire. They had surpassed it, proving that innovation and determination could overcome even millennia of established power. The story of humanity's rise would be told across the galaxy for generations to come, not as a tale of conquest or destruction, but as proof that every species, no matter how primitive they might appear, had the potential to change the universe in their own unique way.